Hey guys, tonight we're slipping off our sandals, ducking beneath a canopy of palm fronds, and stepping back, way back, into the dusty world of ancient Egypt. You're not a pharaoh, not even a priest. You're something better. You're the person who keeps the Nile Valley running, a farmer, rising with the sun and crunching through the morning fog. And yes, you're about to eat what might be history's oldest flatbread, still warm, still smudged with ash, and possibly hiding the occasional beetle leg, because hygiene standards. Let's just say you probably won't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love knowing who's lying down across the world right now, hoping for sleep and history in equal measure. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge out of your mud brick home just as the sun crests over the eastern horizon. The Nile gleams like melted bronze, and the early morning air is cool against your bare arms. Before the fields, before the oxen and irrigation and all the backbreaking labor that awaits, there's breakfast, if you can call it that. The scent hits first smoke yeast and something faintly nutty. You duck into the small, smoke-darkened baking room. Here, the women, your wife, your mother, maybe your grandmother, if her joints allow, are pulling discs of emmer bread from a stone oven that looks more like a beehive than anything you'd find in a kitchen today. There are no slices, no butter, just hard round loaves, often blackened at the edges and occasionally studded with grit from the grinding stones. You bite down. It's chewy filling, and if you're lucky, relatively bug-free. Yes, you heard that right. Grinding grain with sandstone wasn't exactly precision work. Most ancient Egyptian bread had a little bonus mineral content grit that slowly wore down your teeth until eating felt like chewing with sandpaper. Dental records from mummies often show flat, eroded molars. But hey, you don't know any better. You just know that bread is life. Next to the bread is a small dish of honey, rare a luxury. But today's offering to the gods was generous, and the priest shared. You dab your bread in the sticky gold and pretend for a second that you're royalty. It's sweet enough to make your eyes roll back for a moment. And then there's the cheese. Not soft and creamy like you'd smear on toast today, but more like a dry, crumbly lump somewhere between feta and chalk. It's made from goat's or cow's milk, left to sour, strained through linen, and pressed. It tastes earthy and suspiciously warm, but it's protein, and it gets you through the next hour. You eat sitting on the ground, hunched forward, knees bent up like an ibis. Your kids scamper around the mud courtyard, snatching date fruits or chasing chickens. The neighbor's toddler is naked again and wandering too close to the hearth, but nobody seems concerned, not when there are chores waiting and the sun's already getting pushy. Your breakfast is finished with a handful of dried dates, or figs, shrunken sticky things that cling to your fingers. The sweetness lingers as you head toward the tool shed, where wooden hoes and baskets are stacked like offerings to the god of productivity. Historians still argue whether these early morning meals counted as formal breakfasts or just energy top-ups before real food arrived at midday. But from the grindstones found in even the poorest homes, it's clear that bread was more than a side dish, it was survival. Now let's talk protein, because you're not slicing into a steak anytime soon. Instead, you might munch on locusts, sun-dried and crunchy. These weren't famine food, they were snacks. Think salty crisp and disturbingly satisfying if you don't look too closely at the legs. In fact, the Egyptians had a casual, confident relationship with bugs. They used fly-repellent ointments made from animal fat, and herbs swatted flies with bronze fans, and occasionally just accepted that the bread was going to come with extra crunch. You brush something off your emmer loaf. Is it a seed? A gnat? You don't investigate. You're late for the canal. Oh, and don't forget your amulet, not because it helps with crops, but because the gods are everywhere watching, listening, sometimes nibbling on your offerings. You tuck it into your belt alongside a small leather pouch of coriander seeds, not for flavor, for your stomach. You're not entirely sure why, but your grandmother insists, and no one argues with her. Just before leaving, you pass your neighbor who's crouched over a pot of something bubbling. He grins and points to the thick paste inside, made from lentils leeks and whatever he found lurking in the bottom of his storage jar. It's called paseshkef, and it smells like a soup you'd only eat if the gods threatened to curse your crops. But he swears it cures hangovers. You nod politely and back away. The morning sun is higher now. A farmer's day doesn't pause. You grab your woven reed basket, still sticky with fig residue from yesterday's lunch, and you set off for the edge of the river. Behind you, the house settles into silence. Ahead, it's just you, the crops, and whatever snacks you smuggled in your robe. Oh, and your shadow stretched long and thin, already sweating like it knows what's coming. You reach the field before the heat settles in like a wet towel across your shoulders. The Nile shimmers behind you, but there's no time to admire the view. The barley is tall, almost ready. You run your hands across the stalks as if you're blessing them, though really, you're just checking how dry they feel. You've been working this land since you were old enough to lift a sickle, and you know the rhythms better than your own heartbeat. But first, a swig of breakfast beer. Now don't get excited. This isn't something you sip at a tavern with your pinky out. It's thick, cloudy, more like a bready porridge that got tired of pretending to be soup. It smells sour, a little fruity, and has the texture of oatmeal that's given up. You drink it with a straw because chewing your drink is only fun the first time. Still, it's nourishing. Made from fermented barley and spelt it's packed with calories, and your gut has long since made peace with the idea that cleanliness isn't part of the process. Egyptians drank this stuff from the age of 2. Your kids get it watered down like ancient Capri Sun, minus the shiny pouch. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand and look over at your brother, who's already swinging a wooden flail at the dry stalks. He pauses to crunch down on a raw onion like it's an apple. You wince, but honestly, you're next. It burns your mouth, waters your eyes, and somehow makes you feel like you could lift a pyramid. Historians still debate whether ancient Egyptian onions were as pungent as ours today. Some argue they were milder, more like shallots. Others suggest they were the very fuel of ancient labor, cheap filling, and packed with compounds that might have reduced infection in a world without antibiotics. Either way, you chew and sweat, and chew and sweat more. Mid-morning rolls around like a tired ox. The sun's no longer playful, it's punishing. You're bent over tying papyrus reeds into bundles when you remember the snack tucked into the fold of your linen belt. It's not much. A hunk of bread from earlier, now tougher than a sandal sole. You scrape a little salt on it from a pouch sewn into your sleeve. Then a bite of dried garlic chive if you're lucky. If you're really lucky, your wife snuck in a slice of roasted radish. It's wilted now, but still good. You take a moment to sit in the thin shade of an acacia tree. The bark peels in spirals, and ants are already making aggressive inquiries up your ankle. You slap them away and glance toward the canal, where your cousin is waving a bucket in one hand, a fish dangling from the other. You're not stopping for lunch yet, but the sight of fish reminds you of last week's haul. Thin, flat tilapia caught in woven traps, then salted and laid on the rooftop to dry. It doesn't smell great, and the texture is, let's say, ambitious, but it keeps for weeks. Kind of like an ancient jerky, if jerky came with scales and judgment. Some farmers around here say the fish are gifts from the Nile god Hapi. Others just call them better than starving. You're somewhere in between. As you work, you think about the food rituals you've absorbed over the years. You never eat before offering a sliver of bread to the gods, even if it's just placing it on a flat rock near a shrine. You touch your forehead, mutter a thanks, and carry on. You don't know if it works, but your neighbor forgot once and broke his ankle that afternoon. Coincidence you'd rather not find out. One of the more fringe beliefs you've picked up, probably from that traveling pot seller who never quite blinked right, is that chewing lotus root helps you dream better. Not sweet dreams, but visions. Of your ancestors, of the gods, of lottery numbers if Egypt had those. You tried it once and hallucinated a talking ibis who told you to stop eating onions. You ignored him. You stretch your back and watch as your youngest daughter toddles over from the village with a palm-wrapped parcel. Inside, crushed lentils rolled into rough patties and fried in goose fat when you still had any. You break it and half-hand her a piece and eat yours in 3 bites. It's not glamorous, but it's warm and it tastes like home. A buzz of flies trails your every move now. The sun's climbed high and your shadows disappeared like it couldn't take the heat either. You pass by a patch of wild arugula, its bitter leaves curling upward. You pick a few, chew slowly. They help with digestion, supposedly. Or maybe they just give you something to chew that isn't your own tongue. Beer break number 2 happens near a channel where you stop to refill your jug. You sit on the embankment feet dangling just above the water. A crocodile surfaces 30 paces down. You freeze. It doesn't move, and neither do you. There's an old farmer's saying, if the croc blinks, blink back. If it swims, don't. You've never tested it. He sinks beneath the water again. You exhale slowly and take another pull from the beer jug, which now tastes warmer, sourer, and much more like regret. But it keeps you going. You look around and realize something funny. This all of it, the sweat, the garlic, the suspicious beer isn't hardship. It's tradition. The smells, the textures, even the salt rubbed onto a cracked lip. It's the rhythm of life passed down, like an heirloom you didn't ask for but wear anyway. The afternoon presses forward. The snacks are gone, your hands are raw, and you've got straw in your sandals again. But you're fed, you're moving, and tomorrow, barring flood plague or Pharaoh's new taxes, you'll do it all again. By mid-afternoon, the fields blur into a mirage of gold and heat waves. You wipe the sweat from your brow with the hem of your linen tunic, which is now plastered to your skin. Your stomach grumbles again, not from hunger exactly, but from the memory of food. The first flatbread of morning feels like ancient history. It's time to check the irrigation canals before heading back for the late meal. You follow the footpath reed baskets bouncing against your hips. The air is thick with the scent of river mud, sun-scorched grass, and something fishy, literally. As you approach the canal, you see a bundle of dried fish hanging from a papyrus stalk like laundry. Strips of perch mullet and the ever-present tilapia, each piece sun-bleached and curled at the edges. You tear off a piece and pop it in your mouth. It's salty, tough, and chewy in that way that makes your jaw feel like it's doing push-ups. Not bad, though. You chew thoughtfully, watching frogs hop lazily into the water. Just upstream, a younger boy is splashing barefoot, chasing tiny silver fish with a net made from palm fibers. He catches two, barely bigger than your thumb, and grins like he's just wrestled a crocodile. You remember doing the same. And speaking of crocodiles, you hear a splash, not a playful one, the kind that makes birds go silent. You freeze fish jerky halfway to your mouth. A sleek shape moves just beneath the surface. You know better than to investigate. You grab your baskets, your dignity, and back slowly away. Crocodiles are part of life here wholly, to Sobek, the crocodile god, but still quite happy to make a snack out of a distracted farmer. Historians still argue whether common folk genuinely revered these beasts, or just feared them loudly enough to stay alive. Either way, you're not testing fate today. You head toward the water's edge a little upstream to rinse your hands. The silt is cold and smooth between your fingers. You pause to splash your face cool and gritty as it is. Then from the pouch tied around your waist, you pull a wrapped bundle, a late snack, maybe even an early dinner. Inside, a cluster of figs, a crumbling ball of honey, and crushed tiger nuts, and two small radishes. The figs are sweet, almost fermented, like nature's candy soaked in sun. The radishes are spicy enough to wake your mouth up, if only briefly. But it's the tiger nut ball you savor grainy nutty and sticky with syrup. You bite in slowly, letting it melt across your tongue. This isn't everyday fare. Honey was expensive, and tiger nuts had to be gathered and dried and crushed. But your wife made these last week after your neighbor's son returned from a desert market with a satchel of the precious little tubers. She's clever like that, always saving the best for when you need it most. You take another bite and listen to the quiet. Crickets, the breeze whispering through reeds, the distant call of ibis overhead. It's peaceful for now, and yet your mind drifts. You think of cows. Yes, cows. You don't own any, but your cousin does, and he swears that cow's milk, straight from the udder, is better than anything the priests offer at temple feasts. You're not sure. You had a sip once, and it tasted like hay water. Still, cows are sacred, tied to Hathor, the goddess of love and music. Some say her spirit lives in every contentedly chewing bovine. There's a quirky belief in your village that cow breath cures nightmares. You've never tested that, but your daughter once fell asleep in the barn and woke up smiling. Coincidence maybe, but you still sneak a pat on the cow's side every time you pass her, just in case she's got Hathor whispering inside her belly. Back on the path toward the village, you pass a cluster of palm trees. Dates dangle like clusters of molten amber. You stretch up, grab a few, and plop them into your mouth without stopping. They're soft, sweet, and deeply sticky. You wipe your hands on your tunic and keep walking. By the time the village roofs come into view, the light is slanting golden, softening the harsh outlines of mud brick walls. Children run past you barefoot and shrieking. One offers you a piece of sugar cane already chewed on one end. You decline politely. You pass the open granary where scribes are recording daily harvests with reed pens on clay tablets. You glance inside. Rows of clay bins hold barley, wheat, lentils. It's dusty, organized chaos. Somewhere in there is your contribution, a few baskets from earlier. You nod at the scribe who ignores you. He's too busy calculating taxes, or pretending to. Historians still debate whether these scribes were feared or just disliked. Some accounts say farmers respected them as neutral record keepers. Others say they were seen as vultures with better handwriting. Based on that guy's face, you're leaning toward the latter. At home, your wife is heating a pot over the fire. Lentils again, with garlic and leeks this time. The smell is earthy soothing. She hands you a bowl, thick and steaming. No meat tonight, but a bit of leftover goose fat from a feast weeks ago has flavored the broth. You dip in a piece of flatbread and sigh. It's rough around the edges, literally. A little sand again, but it's good. It's warm. It's home. You eat with your back to the wall, watching the sky fade into ink. Above, stars blink to life one by one. Your daughter is brushing figs with honey. She sneaks one into your palm and whispers, "Tomorrow I'll make more tiger nut balls." You smile and nod. Tonight you'll sleep with a full stomach, calloused hands, and the faint sweetness of fig on your breath. Not a bad life, not a royal one, but deeply yours. The wind shifts slightly as the night deepens, blowing in from the Nile with a damp, earthy scent. You lie on a woven mat beneath an open sky, your arms behind your head, staring at constellations you've never learned the names for, but know by feel. The one that rises just before the flood season. The one that looks like your father's sickle. The one your daughter insists is shaped like a cat. You chew slowly on a sliver of dried date, the last of your day's snacks, letting the sugars melt across your tongue. Your belly is full enough at least, and you can feel the heavy fatigue that only honest labor gives. But before you sleep, there's one last thing to do: prepare the next day's ration. You sit up slowly, bones creaking like the hinges of a temple door. From the corner of the room, you pull a clay jar worn smooth by years of use. Inside, a mix of crushed lentils, garlic flakes, and something special fenugreek seeds. Your grandmother used to swear they kept the heat away. You're not convinced, but they do taste faintly of maple and memory. You add a pinch to your wrapped rations, tuck them neatly in cloth, and place them by the door. Tomorrow might be another scorcher, but you'll have your bundle of emmer flatbread, a roasted onion or two, maybe even a sliver of that crumbly cheese, if your son remembers not to eat it all. You might trade for a boiled goose egg, if the neighbor's birds are generous. And if it's market day, there's a chance, just a chance, someone's brought in dried carob pods, chewy sweet, and rumored to make your hair grow thicker. You could use that. As you prepare for rest, your wife lays down beside you with a small oil lamp still flickering. She offers you half a lotus root, steamed soft and sprinkled with coriander. It's a luxury saved from last harvest. You bite in, and the flavor is earthy starchy and slightly floral like eating a dream. And dreams matter, because food in ancient Egypt isn't just for survival, it's for the afterlife too. Your thoughts wander toward the tombs. The Great Pyramids are far from here. Those are for kings and people with names carved into stone. But you've seen the smaller graves near your village. Inside, painted scenes of banquets line the walls, feasts of fish bread figs, and geese the size of pigs. The dead, it seems, dine better than the living. Still, you're not jealous. You've left offerings before tiny ones, a peeled garlic clove, a date, a splash of beer from your jug. You know the ritual: if the dead are fed, they won't bother the living, and if you're lucky, they might even bless your crops. Historians still argue whether these painted tomb feasts were literal beliefs or just hopeful art, but to you, they're real enough. You once saw a clay loaf move in the moonlight near your aunt's grave. You told no one. You still leave bread. The wind picks up again. Somewhere outside, a dog barks, one then falls silent. You lie back down, hands over your stomach, fingers touching faint crumbs still stuck to your tunic. A small smile forms as you remember the look on your daughter's face when she stole that last fig-sticky fingers and all. Your family sleeps close, curled around the room like commas in a sentence you've yet to finish. Tomorrow's another cycle of sweatbread beer and river silt. But tonight the world is still. In a way, you realize you're part of something enormous. The empires rise and fall. Pharaohs name themselves gods. But it's your hands that harvest the grain, your feet that press the mud, your teeth that chew the onions. You, the farmer, are the heartbeat of the Nile, and the Nile always flows. Word count: 1 goats unto 8. Your breath slows now, gently sinking with the ancient river that has cradled your entire day. The labor, the laughter, the crunch of flatbread, and the burn of onions, they begin to soften, fading like the last glow of an oil lamp flickering into silence. The scent of dried herbs lingers faintly in the room, a whisper of coriander, a ghost of roasted garlic. Outside, the reeds sway gently in the night breeze. The sound of distant water lapping the canal walls rocks you into stillness. You shift slightly beneath the linen, your body heavy with rest. The faintest hint of sweetness still clings to your tongue, a memory of figs of honey, of something handmade and quietly sacred. You are full not just in belly but in being, rooted, real, revered in a way no monument could ever match. Let the gods have their temples. Let the kings have their pyramids. You have your mat, your family, and the stars above. And in this quiet, in this ancient rhythm of soil and sun and supper, you belong completely. Let your limbs soften. Let the day drain from your fingertips. The Nile flows without you tonight, and it's okay. You've done enough. The beer is brewed. The bread is wrapped. The onions are picked. And tomorrow will come when it's ready. For now, just rest, just float, just dream.